Well, speaking exclusively to Shelley Chopra just after his arrival in Washington, Finance Minister P. Chidambaram said that India's message to the American government would be clear: set your house in order to reverse the flight of capital from India.
What India wants is that the countries where this crisis originated, the US and some countries in Europe, must do all that is necessary to reverse the impact of this crisis on the global economy, especially the economies of the developing countries. Unfreezing of the frozen credit. Capital flows are now reversing in the developing countries, ensuring that capital flows back to the developing countries.
As the Finance Minister, what do you think is going to be the way by which we could actually encourage that once again?
We don't have to do anything more. What we had in place was enough to attract capital in the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. What is happening now is, because what's happening in their countries, capital is flowing back.
Right.
So if they set their house in order, capital will find its way to attractive destinations where returns are adequate and attractive. India is such a destination. But they must set their house in order.
But when you meet Hank Paulson, what are you going to tell him from this point of view? Setting the house in order that could make life better, more stable for emerging economies.
Yeah, I'll tell him that, what we have told him in IMF for the last 4 or 5 years. Get your imbalances right. You cannot live with these huge imbalances in your economy. Encourage your people to save more. And regulate your global financial institutions, especially systemically important institutions which have a global footprint.
Right.
Regulate them better. Put in place capital adequacy norms. Put in place risk assessment procedures. If they do what sound and sensible bankers do, and I'm sure they have the capacity to do it, they have done it in the past, they seem to have relaxed their vigil in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah. If they set their house in order, surely capital will flow back to developing countries, credit will flow back to developing countries, and things will be much better.
Well, the Finance Minister also said that India was a victim of collateral damage and said corporate India should cut prices, not production, to deal with the economic slowdown.
See, we are not in a crisis situation. We are suffering collateral damage.
Right.
Growth will slow down. We are used to 9% growth for the last 4 years. And I hope people will remember that in the last 4 years, growth has been averaging 8.9%. When it slows down to, say, 7.5 or 7, it hurts. It hurts exporters, it hurts producers, it hurts people seeking jobs. Mm-hmm. But then we don't have to wear sackcloth and ashes when our economy is growing at 7.5. What we need to do is to ensure that the adjustment process takes place in as quick a time as possible and we get back to the 9% growth path, which we can and we will.
Are there any industries that...
But at the moment, those who are affected by a slowdown, mainly because of a demand slowdown, must respond in a manner that will protect them in the medium to long term, rather than seek desperate measures. What is the classic response to a demand slowdown? A classic response of a producer or a supplier to demand slowdown is to cut prices.
Right.
That's what they should do. Hotels should cut tariff. Car makers should cut their prices.
But in our case, there's cut in production that's being talked first before they can cut prices.
That's wrong. That's wrong. They should cut prices. The real estate people should cut prices of homes which are offered on an installment basis. Right. If you cut prices, yes, it will hurt your bottom line, but at least it will ensure that your account does not become an NPA, inventories don't build up, you don't retrench workers or lay off workers. So the classic response where demand slows down is to cut prices.